Have you ever paused before saying yes to a visit, feeling a quiet hesitation that wasn't there before? Maybe you've noticed that the energy for endless social gatherings, once so effortless, now feels harder to muster. You might even wonder if something's wrong with you, or feel a twinge of guilt for wanting to stay home. Let me assure you, you're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you. In this video, we're diving deep into why visiting others doesn't feel the same as you age, and why that's not only okay but a powerful, healthy choice. Stick with us until the end, because we'll share heartfelt stories and practical wisdom to help you embrace this stage of life with confidence, clarity, and peace, letting go of guilt and rediscovering what truly matters to you. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you like this video, you can help me continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know, so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. 1. Protecting your energy. The heart of the matter. At the core of this choice lies something fundamental. Your energy. When we were younger, energy seemed infinite, like a well that never ran dry. You could pile your days with activity, running errands, hosting impromptu gatherings, chatting late into the night, or driving across town to visit a friend just because it felt like the thing to do. Life was a whirlwind, and you moved through it with a kind of reckless abundance. But as the years stack up, even if you're in excellent health, you've likely noticed a subtle shift. Your energy doesn't stretch as far. It's not that you're less capable, it's that you've become more aware of how precious and finite it is. Think about the last time you said yes to a social obligation out of habit or guilt. Maybe it was a family gathering, a coffee date, or a neighbor's open house. You showed up, smiled through small talk, nodded at the right moments, and played the part. But as you drove home, you felt it, that bone-deep exhaustion, not just physical but emotional. You weren't bored or unkind. You were simply depleted. Your inner voice was whispering, "I'm running on empty." This isn't about being antisocial or unloving. It's about recognizing that your energy is a sacred resource, one you've earned the right to allocate thoughtfully. Take my friend John, a vibrant 78-year-old with a laugh that fills a room. For years, he felt compelled to accept every invitation, from community potlucks to distant cousins' birthday parties. He worried that saying no would signal he didn't care, that he'd be seen as distant or selfish. But over time, he noticed a pattern. After certain visits, he'd return home feeling drained, his spirit dimmed rather than lifted. It wasn't the people themselves necessarily, but the sheer effort of showing up, performing, and navigating expectations. One evening, after a particularly exhausting family dinner, he had an epiphany. I don't have to do this anymore. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. John began to choose his visits with intention, prioritizing the people and moments that brought him joy and connection. Those rare gatherings where laughter flowed freely, where conversations felt like nourishment rather than obligation. He discovered something profound. The relationships that mattered most didn't need constant tending. His closest friends, the ones who truly knew him, didn't measure his love by how often they saw him. When they did connect, whether over a quiet lunch or a long phone call, it was rich, meaningful, and energizing. By saying no to what drained him, John reclaimed his energy for what lit him up. This shift isn't about isolation, it's about discernment. You've lived long enough to know that not every invitation deserves your presence. You don't need to attend every event, see every acquaintance, or fill your calendar to prove you're a good friend, parent, or sibling. Your energy is yours to protect, and choosing where it goes is an act of self-love, not selfishness. 2. Preserving your peace. Letting go of stress and drama. Beyond energy, there's another powerful reason many older adults visit less. The deep, hard-earned desire to avoid unnecessary stress and drama. When we're younger, we often tolerate far more than we should. We sit through gossip-laden lunches, endure subtle criticisms, or navigate old family arguments that flare up like clockwork. We bite our tongues, smile politely, and tell ourselves it's just part of keeping the peace. But as the years go by, you begin to see your peace as a treasure worth guarding, not a currency to spend on relationships that leave you unsettled. Consider Susan, a 72-year-old retired nurse with a heart as big as her garden. For decades, she upheld a Sunday tradition of visiting certain family members. It was what her family did. Everyone showed up, no questions asked. But those visits were rarely joyful. They were filled with small, cutting remarks, a jab about her cooking, a veiled critique of her life choices, or a rehashing of grievances from years past. There was no single blow-up, no dramatic falling out, just a steady drip of negativity that left her feeling heavy and diminished. She'd drive home, her mind replaying the conversations, wondering why she felt so unsettled. One day, she asked herself a simple, revolutionary question. Why am I doing this to myself? Susan made a quiet but profound choice. She stopped those weekly visits, not out of spite or to make a point, but to protect her peace. She didn't cut her family out entirely. She still called, sent cards, and showed up for important occasions, but she set boundaries that honored her well-being. The first few weeks felt strange, even a little guilty, but soon she noticed something remarkable. Her Sundays became lighter. She spent them tending her roses, reading novels, or sipping tea on her porch, free from the weight of unspoken tensions. Her peace, she realized, was worth more than tradition. This isn't about weakness or coldness, it's about wisdom. You've lived long enough to recognize that not every relationship deserves your front-row presence. Some people, whether through their actions or their energy, bring stress, judgment, or drama that lingers long after the visit ends. And you don't owe them your time or your spirit. You've given enough over the years. More than enough. Choosing to step back from those dynamics is a powerful act of self-respect, a recognition that your emotional well-being matters just as much as anyone else's comfort, if not more. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 3. Embracing your sanctuary, the comfort of home. There's another layer to this shift, one that feels almost sacred. The deep connection you develop with your own space as you age. Your home becomes more than a place to live, it becomes your sanctuary, your soft place to land. After years of building a life, you've filled your space with pieces of yourself. The worn armchair that fits your body perfectly, the coffee mug with the chipped handle you can't bear to part with, the photos on the wall that tell your story, the scent of your favorite candle or the sound of your favorite record. This is the space you've crafted, intentionally or not, to reflect who you are. Why wouldn't you want to linger in it? Take Mike, a 75-year-old widower I know from church. After losing his wife, he felt an unspoken pressure to stay social, to fill his days with activity to avoid loneliness. So he'd force himself out several times a week, dinners, card games, community events, thinking it was what he was supposed to do. But every time he left someone else's house, he felt a quiet unease. It wasn't that the visits were unpleasant, they just weren't home. The noise, the unfamiliar chairs, the effort of navigating someone else's space, it all left him longing for the quiet comfort of his own. One day, Mike had a realization. I don't have to leave to feel content. He began inviting 1 or 2 close friends over instead of driving across town for noisy gatherings. They'd sit in his backyard, sipping coffee, watching the birds, and talking about everything from old memories to new dreams. When they left, Mike didn't have to brace for a long drive or recover from a social hangover. He was already home, surrounded by the familiar beauty of his own space. His peace remained intact. This isn't about shutting the world out. It's about inviting the world in on your terms. It's about recognizing that your home is a reflection of your life's work, a place where you can be fully yourself. There's a quiet joy in brewing tea in your kitchen, curling up with a book in your favorite nook, or simply sitting in silence, letting the rhythm of your home soothe you. Visiting less doesn't mean you love people less. It means you've learned to love the life you've built just as much. 4. Evolving relationships. Depth over quantity. As we age, our social circles don't necessarily shrink, they deepen. This is one of the most beautiful truths about growing older. You begin to see relationships with new clarity. When you were younger, there was often an unspoken pressure to maintain a wide net of connections. High school friends, old coworkers, distant relatives, neighbors from houses you left behind. You sent cards, made calls, and showed up to reunions, all to keep those ties alive. You didn't want to seem like you were drifting or letting anyone down. But over time, you realize something profound. Not every relationship is meant to last forever, and that's okay. Some friendships demand constant effort, always requiring you to prove your loyalty or pour energy into their upkeep. Others, the ones that truly matter, feel effortless. They don't need frequent visits or endless small talk to stay strong. They're built on trust, shared history, and a mutual respect for space. Linda, a 68-year-old friend from my book club, put it beautifully. I used to think friendship meant being there all the time, proving I cared by showing up. But now I know it's about being there when it counts. She's right. The relationships that endure don't depend on quantity. They thrive on quality. They're the friends you can go months without seeing, yet when you reconnect, it's as if no time has passed. You pick up right where you left off, not because you've been in constant contact, but because you're in each other's hearts. This shift is like pruning a garden. You don't cut back to destroy. You do it to let the strongest blooms thrive. By letting go of relationships that feel heavy or one-sided, you create space for the ones that nourish you. You begin to value fewer voices in your life, but more harmony, less catching up, and more true connection. You stop trying to be everything to everyone and start showing up more fully for the people who see you, truly see you, for who you are now. 5. Shifting priorities. Living with intention. Finally, there's a deeper transformation at play as we age, a shift in how we view life itself. When you were younger, certain things carried weight, being included, staying visible, keeping up with everyone's expectations. But as the years unfold, those priorities lose their hold. You start asking different questions, ones that cut to the core. What brings me peace? What do I want to experience with the time I have left? What makes me feel alive, grounded, and free? These questions are powerful because they demand honesty. And often, the answers don't point to a crowded social calendar or frequent visits. They point to stillness, reflection, and purpose. Take David, a 70-year-old retired firefighter I met at a community event. For most of his life, he was always on the move, volunteering, organizing, checking in on everyone. But after his 70th birthday, something shifted. He told me, "I realized I'd spent so much time showing up for others that I'd forgotten how to show up for myself." David began to pull back, not from people, but from pressure. He started spending mornings walking nature trails, the crunch of leaves underfoot grounding him in a way no busy gathering ever could. He dusted off books he'd meant to read for years, savored quiet evenings on his porch with a cup of tea, and let the simplicity of those moments fill him. In that stillness, he found clarity, a sense of who he was without the constant hum of external expectations. And here's the beautiful part. The people who truly loved him didn't fade away. They respected his new rhythm. They met him where he was, whether that meant a quiet coffee at his house or a long phone call instead of a visit. Real connection, David learned, isn't measured by how often you see someone. It's measured by how deeply you honor each other's growth. This stage of life isn't about retreating into the shadows. It's about stepping into your light. Visiting less doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you're choosing how to care in a way that aligns with who you are now. Sometimes that care looks like a handwritten note instead of a long drive. Sometimes it's a phone call in the morning sun instead of a noisy dinner. And sometimes it's choosing to stay home, curled up with your dog, your knitting, or your thoughts, because that, too, is an act of love for yourself. There's an unshakable freedom that comes with living life on your terms, especially as you step into the later chapters of your journey. It's a freedom hard-won, forged through decades of showing up for others, giving your time, your heart, your energy, often at the expense of your own needs. You've spent years nurturing relationships, raising families, supporting friends, and meeting expectations, sometimes without pausing to ask what you needed. But now, as the years have softened your edges and sharpened your wisdom, you're beginning to see something profound. You don't need to prove your love or loyalty through constant presence. The people who truly matter, the ones who hold a piece of your heart, already know its rhythm. They feel your care, even when you're not sitting across from them at a table. This stage of life, often after 60, invites you to slow down, to stop rushing, and to start listening. Listening to the quiet signals of your body, the gentle tug of your intuition, the way your heart lifts or sinks after certain interactions. It's not avoidance when you say no to a visit that feels draining. It's awareness. It's the clarity to recognize what fills you up and what leaves you depleted. And sometimes, that awareness leads you right back home, not just to the four walls of your house, but to the deeper, truer home within yourself. This is a return to your spirit, a reclamation of your peace, and it's one of the most sacred gifts of aging. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, Please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 6. The rhythm of a slower, richer life. There's a unique rhythm to life after 60, one that's slower, yes, but infinitely richer. It's a cadence woven with intentional moments, simple pleasures, and a deeper sense of meaning. You've spent decades moving at the pace of others, racing to meet deadlines, obligations, or social expectations. But now, the world's demands feel less urgent, and your desires come into sharper focus. This rhythm invites you to say yes only to what truly matters, to prioritize the people, places, and moments that align with your soul. For many women, this stage transforms solitude from something to fear into something to cherish. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's a sacred space for reflection, healing, and growth. It's a quiet morning spent with a cup of tea, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues of peach and gold. It's the afternoon lost in a novel that speaks to your heart, or the evening spent journaling thoughts you never had time to explore when life was a blur of activity. In these moments, you're not retreating from the world, you're reconnecting with yourself. You're finally permitting yourself to dream your dreams, to nurture your spirit, to ask, what do I want from this precious time I have left? Consider Ellen, a 67-year-old artist I met at a community center. For years, she filled her days with visits to friends and family, driven by a sense of duty. But after a health scare forced her to slow down, she began spending more time in her small studio, surrounded by paints and canvases. At first, she worried people would think she was withdrawing, that she'd hurt feelings by declining invitations. But in those quiet hours, she discovered something extraordinary. She was painting again, not just for others to admire, but for herself. "I'm not hiding," she told me, her eyes bright. "I'm finding myself. And it feels like coming home." This is the beauty of this chapter. You're no longer chasing approval or scrambling to fill a calendar with visits to prove your worth. You're grounded, rooted in a deeper understanding of who you are. And from that groundedness, you get to redefine what connection means to you. 7. Redefining connection. Love beyond presence. Connection, you come to realize, isn't always about physical presence. It doesn't require driving across town for small talk that leaves you drained or attending every family gathering out of obligation. True connection transcends proximity. It lives in the thoughtful message you send on a whim, the prayer you whisper for a friend, the memory you share in a handwritten letter, or the warm pie you leave on someone's doorstep, still fragrant from the oven. You don't stop caring when you visit less. You simply start caring in quieter, more personal ways that feel authentic to who you are now. The people who truly love you understand this. They don't measure your affection by how often your car pulls into their driveway or how many hours you spend at their table. They feel your presence in the way you listen when they speak, the way you remember their birthday with a heartfelt note, the way you show up when it matters most, whether that's for a milestone celebration or a quiet moment of support during a difficult time. Real connection isn't about quantity. It's about quality, depth, and mutual respect. Take Mary, a 72-year-old widow I spoke with earlier this year. After losing her husband of 45 years, she faced a chorus of well-meaning advice. Get out more. Stay busy. Fill your days with people. Friends and family worried she'd grow lonely if she didn't keep a packed social calendar. But Mary wasn't lonely. She was rediscovering herself. For the first time in decades, she told me, I'm learning who I am when I'm not someone's wife, mother, or host. And I like her. Instead of forcing herself into visits that felt like performances, she began inviting 1 or 2 close friends over for tea in her garden, where they'd talk about life, loss, and everything in between. Those moments felt richer than any crowded gathering ever had. Mary wasn't isolating. She was healing, choosing connections that honored her heart and her journey. This is a powerful truth. Aging is a sacred journey, not something to dread or outrun, but something to embrace with reverence. Part of that reverence means permitting yourself to do things differently. You're allowed to guard your time like the treasure it is. You're allowed to set boundaries, even with the people you love most, because those boundaries don't diminish your love, they protect it. They ensure that when you do show up, you're present in a way that's wholehearted and true. 8. The courage to say no, boundaries as an act of love. As you grow older, you begin to see that saying no isn't a rejection, it's an affirmation. It's a declaration that your peace, your energy, and your well-being matter. 4 years, you may have said yes to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to meet expectations. You endured long drives that left your body aching, conversations that felt shallow or draining, and gatherings that carried an undercurrent of tension. But now, with the wisdom of experience, you've learned something vital. Real peace doesn't come from pleasing others at your own expense. It comes from aligning your choices with your heart. Saying no without apology is one of the bravest things you can do. No to chaos that unsettles your spirit. No to small talk that feels like a chore. No to visits that leave you depleted rather than uplifted. And in the same breath, yes to yourself, yes to what nourishes your soul, yes to moments of joy, yes to rest. This isn't about pulling away from love. It's about returning to it, returning to the relationships and moments that fill you up, that remind you of who you are. I think of Clara, a 69-year-old librarian who spent years attending every family function, no matter how exhausting. Her relatives had a habit of rehashing old dramas, and Clara often left those gatherings feeling like she'd been through an emotional wringer. One day, after yet another tense Sunday brunch, she decided she'd had enough. She began declining invitations that felt like obligations, choosing instead to spend her weekends volunteering at a local animal shelter or reading in her cozy living room. At first, some family members pushed back, accusing her of being distant or selfish. "They said I'd changed," Clara told me with a wry smile. And I said, "Good. I have." Clara's change wasn't about loving her family less, it was about loving herself more. She still called her siblings, sent thoughtful gifts to her nieces, and showed up for the moments that mattered, like her nephew's graduation. But she stopped sacrificing her peace for the sake of tradition. And over time, her family began to respect her boundaries because they saw her joy, her lightness, her authenticity. Clara's story is a reminder. When someone tries to guilt you into visiting more, calling you selfish or distant, they're noticing your growth. You have changed, and that's a beautiful thing. You've stepped into a wiser version of yourself, one that says yes only when it feels right and no when it protects your peace. 9. A life of intention. Choosing what moves you. This shift toward living on your own isn't a story of withdrawal. It's a story of return. It's about coming back to the things that truly matter. The relationships that lift you, the moments that move you, the kind of peace that doesn't need justification. You're not visiting less because you've stopped caring. You're visiting less because you've redefined what care means. It's not about showing up in a room. It's about showing up in spirit, with presence, with authenticity. It's about choosing depth over obligation, honesty over performance, and mutual respect over expectation. When you release the guilt, the pressure, the old habits of saying yes to everything, you open the door to a different kind of life. A softer, fuller, more intentional one. Every yes becomes wholehearted. Every no becomes freeing. You begin to craft a life that feels like yours again, one where your choices reflect your values, your energy, and your heart. Think of Ruth, an 80-year-old woman I met at a community knitting circle. 4 years, she'd driven hours to visit relatives, feeling it was her duty as the family matriarch. But as her knees grew achier and her patience for surface-level chatter wore thin, she started hosting small gatherings at her home instead. She'd invite a few loved ones for soup and stories, sharing laughter and memories in the warmth of her kitchen. "I used to think I had to go to them to show I cared," she said. "Now I realize I can love them just as much from right here." Those gatherings, small and simple, became the heartbeat of her relationships, far more meaningful than any obligatory visit. This is the gift of aging. The clarity to know what you want and the courage to choose it. If you've been feeling guilty for saying no to visits, for savoring your solitude, for choosing calm over chaos, let this be your permission to let that guilt go. You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing something profoundly right. You're listening to yourself, honoring your needs, and creating a life that feels true. Your value isn't tied to how much you give to others. It's rooted in who you are, in the love you offer in your way, on your terms. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 10. Letting go with love. Honoring your journey. The people who truly matter will understand this shift. They'll see the light in your eyes when you talk about the book you're reading, the garden you're tending, the quiet moments that fill your soul. They'll feel your love in the thoughtful ways you show up, whether it's a phone call, a card, or a rare but meaningful visit. And those who don't understand, who push back or judge you for visiting less. Perhaps they were only meant to walk with you for part of your journey. Let them go with love, with grace, and keep moving forward. This is your time, your season to live with intention. You've earned the right to choose peace over pressure, depth over duty, yourself over expectation. Every now is a step toward a life that feels like yours. Every yes is a celebration of what matters most. And in that balance, you'll find a freedom you may not have known was possible. A freedom to be fully, unapologetically you. So, the next time you hesitate before accepting an invitation or feel a pang of guilt for staying home, take a deep breath and smile. You're not less loving, you're more awake. You're crafting a life that honors the woman you've become, and that's a beautiful, strong, and sacred shift. Walk forward in it with grace, knowing that every choice you make is a testament to the wisdom you've earned and the love you still have to give. As we wrap up, I hope this message has resonated with you and permitted you to honor your energy, protect your peace, and live life on your terms. Aging is a sacred journey, and choosing what truly matters is a beautiful part of it. So, let's reflect. What's one thing you've learned from this video that speaks to your heart? Maybe it's a new way to prioritize your time, a realization about letting go of guilt, or a deeper appreciation for the sanctuary of your own space. Please share one thing you've learned and plan to bring into your life in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Strong Elderly Life, for more heartfelt conversations to support and inspire you. Here's to living gently, bravely, and fully at every age.